day, everyone, and welcome to the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. Now, we would have started at 10 a.m. already, but we had some technical difficulties. But guess what? We pushed through, and here we are. And I'm joined today by the fabulous and amazing Angelo, and I hope I pronounced his surname correctly, Reyes. I want to read you his bio before I bring him onto screen. He's in the green room with me currently. Training history: Grandmaster Jhong Kim, 9th Dan Taekwondo. Master John Kim, 7th Dan Taekwondo. Master John Yen, 5th Dan Taekwondo. Instructor Gio, 4th Dan Taekwondo. Grandmaster Kim Chang's son, 8th Dan Taekwondo, 7th Dan Hapkido. Grandmaster Yusuf Ali Abdullah, 8th Dan Koga Ninjutsu, founder of MYAA. Founder of Bong 1 Taekwondo, 4th degree black belt, Sabumnim Angelo Reyes. Born and raised in Staten Island, New York, starting martial arts at a very young age. It was necessary because the streets of New York, for those that know, can be very dangerous at any time. Bullying, fighting, problems were all inevitable. You always have to have your guard up, no matter what age you were, how you looked, or who you knew. Martial arts was necessary, and I thank God every day for having it in my life. And with that, we bring our special guest on screen. Welcome, Michael. How are you?
Hello, guys. Hello. How are you? Thank you, Juanita, for having me on this podcast. Thank you.
It is such a pleasure, Michael. It's such an honor. You know, we had a good discussion on Messenger, and then we had a virtual coffee, and you're, of course, a part of my Meticulous Martial Arts Mastermind. I'm so blessed to have you there, and just getting to know you has been such a wonderful journey. Now, I know a little bit about you, but I would like for you to tell the audience something that you would like them to know about you.
Well, something that I would like the audience to know about me is martial arts is in fact present in my life like every single day, whether I am teaching, whether I am working, because I work in an environment where I always have to be on my guard. Not really that it's physical violence, but I work in with autistic kids. I work with kids that have mental disabilities and things like that. So, sometimes they may not really process what's happening. Sometimes they may go to hit, pull, scratch. And, I just need to be on not a level to defend myself, but to keep a calm head, not to, get really angry at them because they're not in control of what they are doing themselves. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like martial arts even helps me on a day-to-day basis like that, even working or even, not at work and things like that.
I absolutely love that, and I applaud you for your great work that you are doing in society and in the community. That's what Meticulous Moments is all about. It's about working in the community, facilitating that leadership development. And I'll tell you, autistic children are the smartest kids on this planet.
Yes.
I've had the pleasure to work with them in the ministry. It is such a wonderful pleasure to work with them. And, I agree with you. What we learn in the martial arts, we apply in the rest of our lives. Now, you yourself started out in the martial arts when you were very young. Now, tell us, what age did you start? Because you've had quite the journey. I mean, you're only in your 20s now, right? How old are you now?
I am 23. I'll be 24 soon. I'm 23 years old. So I started martial arts when I was around 8-9 years old. Then, throughout the lines, my father had a friend called Grandmaster Jhong Kim that had owned an IHOP over here. He owned an IHOP, the pancake place. So one day my dad was like, you know what? I'm going to take you somewhere. And I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. And, I get to IHOP. And at that time, I'm really heavy set. So I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to get burgers. I'm going to get French fries. I'm going to get a milkshake. And he's like, oh, no, we're not going to IHOP. You're going to this school. And it was like a little small dojang on the side of IHOP. And I'm like, wait, huh? He's like, oh, yeah, you're going to start training with the Kims. So I started training with the Kims for a while. And, I started instructing for them. They were very, very awesome people. They knew, everything about Taekwondo. I mean, Their father, Grandmaster Kim, because they're the three brothers. They were Master John, Master Robin, Master David. Their father was the 9th degree black belt Jhong Kim. So, their family was very rich in Taekwondo. So, very known family out here in New York too, and in the Taekwondo community. Then for them, I instructed for some time. After that, I had went away from them. After I achieved my 2nd degree, I was up to test for my 3rd dan. I decided not to test for my 3rd dan with them. I decided to leave over some problems and some issues that I had with the school, and so I decided to leave. After that, through a friend, I came in contact with an old Korean guy. Old, you would think on contact he was a mean person, but he was a very tough guy. And you would look at him and he would have just a very serious face all the time. And I was like, is this the guy that's going to teach us martial arts? He's like, oh yeah, he's phenomenal. Okay, no problem. And I went from doing martial arts training, you would come in and you would do your stretches and you would warm up, you would hit the bag and everything, to now I'm going, ready, kimasasogi, to me, hana, do. So I'm going back to very, very, very traditional type of training. So I'm like, I'm a 2nd degree, I'm up for my 3rd degree, but I'm going back to colored belt training. What is this? So, but it took me to notice that every single time we gathered together, it was always basics. Always basics. He didn't really like, the high jump spin kicks and, all this fancy stuff. His thing was that martial arts was for self-defense, for protection. It wasn't to look pretty. It wasn't to compete. It wasn't to get trophies. It wasn't to get medals. It was to strictly fight when necessary. And he used the word fight, not only to protect yourself in self-defense. He used to fight. Why? Because sometimes you have to fight for yourself. Sometimes you have to fight for the others. Sometimes you have to fight for the weak. So that's why his philosophy on practicing martial arts differed. And on top of that, he was, during the war and everything. So, that probably, was in his head as well. He was very war oriented, and, the techniques that he would teach us weren't very commercialized Taekwondo techniques. It was the spear hand goes to the eyes and it could go to the throat, and, just very dangerous techniques. And, he went into more detail as to, tell us the different meridian points, that comes from Chinese traditional medicine and healing. He taught us, go over the different meridians, and, he would go over the pressure points. He would go over the vital areas. He would go over things like that because he knew they were necessary. And his thing was, we're not here to dance around with an opponent. We're not here to dance around, and, we're here to, let them know.
Serious.
That's it, So, I really adapted to that philosophy because I was one to also believe that, that this philosophy of martial arts nowadays is over fairy tale of, oh, you have to be peaceful and you have to be a monk and you have, I feel like that's over, fairy tale nowadays, because I feel that martial artists use it as an excuse to either not spar or to not pressure test their martial arts system, or to, not really lose face in a way. I feel like that's why they use that, always profess peace. I'm not saying don't profess peace, because obviously that's what the martial arts does teach us, but it also does teach us that, peace is not always the answer.
I hear you. I like what he taught you. We train like that, Michael. It's you step in, of course you do your stretching and everything, but then when the class starts, it's like kubidach, and here we go, and we train and we train. And tournaments, they're lovely, but they're a very small part of what we do and what we train.
Yes.
We train self-defense, and we say tournament karate is beautiful, it's pretty karate, but street karate is not pretty.
No.
And the way that we train is you go in and out, you neutralize the threat, and you're off. You go. But we really always follow the route of peace first.
Right.
If it really cannot be resolved, if someone does push you into a corner, if someone is threatening your life, then you act. It's not about going out and looking for that fight like you mentioned, but you have to know how to carry yourself. And you've trained under so many masters. I know that you had a master that moved away and you trained with him for a while. Tell us about him as well.
So that's the guy that I was speaking about, Grandmaster Kim Chung.
This is the same one.
So
Okay.
Grandmaster Kim Chung Sun, he was the tough guy, you know. I mean, he was one of the masters that would actually sit there and spar you. It's not that he would tell you, oh yeah, do this technique, sit down, and you know, just watch the whole class. No, he was up. His kick went behind his head. Like his axe kick was phenomenal. I mean,
wow.
when he went to spar, it was like he was 30 years old. The way he switched, the way he did the kick, the way he did the double kick, the way he did his Narabanchagi. I mean, he was phenomenal. This guy was crazy. And, you know, his strength and his hands and his feet. I mean, that's why, you know, till this day, you know, I'm pretty sure that he still trains. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when he was with us, you know, it was me and 4 other people. So in total, it was 5 people. And, you know, it was either in his backyard. It was either in Silver Lakes Park or Clove Lakes Park, or it was the beach, or maybe it was in his garage. You know, he didn't have a school. He didn't have a big dojo, you know, so that was like kind of the downside to everything, where, you know, now we have to use each other as heavy bags and punching bags, and, you know, we don't have these cool mitts, and, you know, we don't have the protective gear, and, you know, but I really appreciate it. You know, when you're going through it, you don't appreciate it. But after you go through it, you come back, you appreciate it a lot, because, you know, it was a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have been able to learn if I wasn't put through those experiences. You know, so like even the sparring, it was like, listen, you guys are gonna go at it, you guys are gonna fight, and anything goes. So it's not like a regular Taekwondo fight anymore, where it's like you mostly kick and you could punch when you're close. And no, if you get close and you can grab for the arm and you do a wrist lock, do the wrist lock. If you go and you can do a hip throw, do a hip throw. If you can go into an arm bar from that hip throw, go in. So it was more of a continuous, you know, fighting style, you know? It was more of a continuous fighting style, you know, that he professed. And, you know, that's what I really like, because it helped me, you know. And I've been, you know, in my share of fights, you know, I've been in my share of, you know, people coming at me. And, you know, I thank God today I have never felt victim to the streets or to anybody, you know, in that manner. But, you know, I stay humble, you know, I stay humble.
You did. And the training that he facilitated there in his garden, and there's beautiful comments here as we are talking. I'm going to read some of the comments to you as well from our guests that are listening. You know, the things that he taught you, the way that he taught you, really prepares you for that day when you really are in that tight spot. Because you have to not just know the individual movements, you have to know how to apply them and how to think fast and what to do in a certain given situation. So that is amazing. Plus the fact that you were doing body conditioning. It's not a bad thing to be the punch bag, because the body conditioning, if someone punches you now, you don't feel it like you would have felt it if you had not gone through that training. I want to go into some comments here. Phil Maudsley is on with us, and he says, and he's talking about you, this guy is awesome. It's going to be a great interview. So shout out to Phil Maudsley. And then we've got Edward Bishop. I mean, Edward couldn't wait for this interview to start. He's been asking me, because we started late, you know. So Edward, hi to you as well. Shout out to you. He says he agrees with you, and he commented the following. He said, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the time of war.
That is a beautiful saying, because my first Grandmaster used to profess that saying to me all the time. Every time there was a promotion and he would come out, that was his famous saying. It was better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener at the time of war. That is a very true statement. And Edward, I really thank you for that comment. I really do. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you, Ed. We appreciate your support. He absolutely loves our lives here, and I know he's very close with you. And Edward and Phil also are both members of the Meticulous Martial Arts Mastermind with Michael, and we are such a lovely God is so good to have brought all of us together. And Michael is going to be doing a weapons demonstration slash teaching next week in our main group. So tell us, before we go into your styles, all the different weapons that you've trained in and which one is your favorite?
Oh my God, my favorite. Okay, so I'll go in through the weapons that I've trained with. Okay, so some weapons that I've trained in are the nunchucks, the nunchaku, the single, the double, using dual wield, the sai, um,
Nice.
using the teko. The teko is kind of like a brass knuckle type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, Also the arnis sticks, the eskrima sticks, but it's not really how they would use it like in a Filipino system. But also the bow, the katana, also using the double broadsword, the double dao from kung fu, using the
Yeah.
spear, using long pole, guan dao, pu dao, using the deer antlers. They're like kind of also like brass knuckles, but they're like, have you ever seen them in the kung fu movies?
Yes, I believe I have.
Yeah, so something like that. A lot of different weapons that I have trained with. I have had the honor and the privilege of training in other weapons such as the tonfa. I love the tonfa, the way it is, the way you can use it. The kama, the kama weapons are actually the kamas are very 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 nice weapons that I like. What else? So many weapons that I have trained in. But my favorite weapon, that would be hard. I would have to say, I would have to say the guandao.
Guandao.
I would have to say the guandao. Now, why? I guess because of the story that I've heard about it. You know,
Yeah.
I heard that they were either used on the backs of people that were, riding the horses, and they were used to cut the legs off the horses as they were running or charging towards the person. So it's kind of brutal, but I thought it was kind of really cool that they would come up with a weapon, enough to, slash and, using the momentum of the horse plus their momentum, just swipe through four legs and just, I thought that was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite weapon. And on the end, you can also use it as a weapon. There's a little point at the end that you can use as a weapon when you flip. Then you have the blade. Then when you turn it over, there's the little hook, so you can hook and pull as well. So the guandao is a very creative weapon when you know how to manipulate it.
Absolutely amazing. Amazing. Edward says Guandao is his baby. I believe he shared one of the photos in our. When we are in war, we have to, of course, fight to survive. So I agree with why you would choose that as your favorite weapon. I love the sai and I absolutely love the bow staff. Those are my two favorites. We do nunchucks as well, but I love the sai. Actually, sai is my favorite. And Phil says this is one amazing guy. I would love to meet him in training. His training is unbelievable. I'm a fan. I could learn so much from him, one true legend. So there's another comment by Phil for you, Michael. And before we go on to the styles that that you've trained, I want to ask you: have you practiced Kali before, the Filipino martial arts?
Well, not with the Kali master, but with the instructors that I have trained with. They have had, training in Eskrima Kali, so they have taught me like different types of, moves with it, disarming moves that you can do. But to be trained by a Kali master, no, I have not.
Oh, wow. But you do have that background. That's amazing. I absolutely want to start with Kali training. I've been looking through some videos about that. So that I find it fascinating. It's brutal
Yes.
and it's effective.
Oh, yes.
And I think we should all learn a little bit more about that as well. Now, tell us your styles. You have so many dance. You are busy with so many styles and
Oh,
you're so knowledgeable. Start from the beginning.
so I started off with karate. That was like in the
Yeah.
after school. I would go to a karate dojo. I did that for some time. Then I switched over to taekwondo. So my primary style is taekwondo. I'm a fourth dan in taekwondo, sadan. Um, so after I left Dragon Kim's, I left with a second degree, and I was up for the promotion to third degree. When I met Grandmaster Kim Cheng Sun, he tested me. He gave me my third degree. Now, the fourth degree I got a few years later because, as you know, that he was, he
Yes.
went back to Korea, due to his disease, and what he did to everybody there was he graduated everybody to the next rank because that was the last time he would be able to promote anybody. So it was kind of a controversial thought of, hey, how would this happen? But it wasn't like, oh, it would just pass 1 year, it passed 2 years. No, it passed, 3 years, and that he was like, listen, I gotta leave because of X, Y, and Z. He broke it down to us. We were all so sad. So what he did was, as a final gift, he gave everybody their next dan, and I had his blessing, to teach independently. And for some time, I really went about how would I do that, and how would I. But he really helped me, and then until the point that he left, I still hold him dearly in my heart. But styles that I have practiced, Taekwondo, and because of him, I have learned Hapkido, and he gave me my first dan in Hapkido. Also, iron palm. That's have you ever seen like things like this? Like it's like dad jaw.
Yeah.
It's like some types of like herbs that
Herbs. Oh yeah.
the herbs inside. So it's like before you do it, you can apply it onto whatever part you're gonna train, and you would hit. They recommend that you start with softer things and then build your way up. But when I learned it, from Grandmaster Kim Cheng Sun, it was more or less, you put it on and you hit something hard. You feel like it hurts. You stop. You put it on again. You hit it again. So his training was very different from how the Chinese trained. The Chinese kind of trained with more caution, more preparation. He was kind of more like, let's put it on, and then it would, it hurts. Okay, stop for 2 minutes, apply it again, then go back to it. So it was more like you destroy your bone, but it's going to build back. He had like a different thought process, but I kind of see where he was going with it. It was more of the more of the era that he grew up in, the time that he, served in the military and everything, So I understood where he was coming from of he wanted everybody, all of his students to be war machines. So,
Yes.
But other than that, I have trained in, different types of kung fu, again, not under an official master, but I have, a lot of martial arts connections, a lot of martial arts friends. So we get together, we teach each other things. Judo as well. I had a friend that would throw me from here to over there, from back over there, So, I told him, hey, you got to teach me this, like in Taekwondo, we don't throw. You got to teach me this. So he's like, I love judo. I love judo. It's an amazing workout. It's an amazing martial art, a very effective martial art as well. So it's like, combining Taekwondo with Hapkido, with judo, and, all these bits and pieces of martial arts that you learn from, it's amazing. And,
Absolutely.
in my family, I have a lot of military, family members. My sister's a sergeant, my uncles, a very high class sergeant. I don't know what it's called, but I know he's very up there. My father was also, a boxer in his days. So it's like, martial arts really runs through my family. My siblings also, earned ranks in martial arts, colored belts, and my brother has a third degree black belt in Taekwondo. My younger brother, he has a third degree black belt, and I had the honor of giving him that black belt. My father is a first degree black belt. I mean, so I do have
family
present. Yeah, very present.
It's in the blood, and therefore it's in the family. I also do martial arts with my kids, and at our dojo we do Shorin Ru Shorin Kan, and we've started to do Mushin Kan now, which is empty mind karate. And we do self-defense, we do jiu-jitsu, we do boxing, kickboxing, and it's just amazing. On Tuesday you mentioned weapons, you wanted machines, and on Tuesday I had a very good session. We did jiu-jitsu on Tuesday, and after a throw, I stood up and I looked at the Kiyoshi and I said, Kiyoshi, you're making a weapon. He's making a weapon because of all the body conditioning You don't feel it after a
Yeah,
while anymore. You've been choked so many times. I've been punched so many times in the face. I don't feel it,
you don't
which is
feel
a
it.
good thing. Coming
Right,
back to body conditioning, it's a good thing.
right.
Because he always says if I would walk in the street and someone would try to attack me, they would get the surprise of their lives because they wouldn't think, a woman walking in the
Exactly,
street with a handbag.
exactly.
Yeah, so it's good. It's good to get a lot of experience in different forms. That's why when I went to Jersey, I visited Sifu Raphael, who's also in our MAM group in New York. And I trained at his Kung Fu dojo. And I know Ed that's on here, he does Kung Fu. And I'm not sure about Phil's style. Phil, just put in the comments what style do you do. He's an amazing martial artist as well, 30 years into the martial arts, stuntman. And I want to read some comments to you here. Phil says he's going to invite you to a UK seminar. And Edward says we don't talk about iron palm here. And of course, we know he's joking.
Don't reveal the secrets.
Yeah, so it's good to make your joints strong. It's good to make your hands strong, different parts of your body, to practice that because when you do get into that fight, you'll be better off for it.
And
And I saw a photo where your hand was quite broken. It was hurt, it was chafed, and it was bleeding. Did you get that from Iron Palm?
that was the
Um,
Iron Palm training without the Ditajo. That was without
oh,
the ointment. So I was I was seeing who was it? I was seeing a comment, the Deadly Art of Survival on that page, and he posted a picture of his hand. Shidoshi Nathan Ingram. Oh, phenomenal
yeah.
martial artist. You wouldn't
Oh,
believe
wow.
how good and how known, how famous this guy is. I had the honor of going to his seminar. I mean, just looking at him, he radiates like an intimidating chi, but he's such a beautiful person. But it's just like you look at him and you're like, do I go up to him? Do I say anything? I mean, you could tell that guy's the real deal.
Yeah.
So he had posted a picture of his hand, and you know how you see like those Chinese people with the big whelps on their hands, and his hand was just like that, like a big fat hand, like looked like a pure weapon itself. So somebody said, "Hey, do you use Dit Dao Jaw?" He said, "Never used it. Like I never used it in my life." So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna see how this feels without Dit Dao Jaw.
Oh.
I took a cinder block and I'm pounding, pounding, pounding. Oh, and I tell you, I felt it. I felt it. I didn't use it before and after, but I felt it. It was
Yeah.
pain. It was pain. So
Oh
I could
my
just
God.
imagine the years and years and years that this, man had to
Yeah.
put in, make his hands into literal weapons. I mean, phenomenal, phenomenal. But
That's
the
great.
you like what you were saying before, the conditioning is very true. Like I've seen people that were black belts, they get to actual fight, they punch and they break their hand or they break their wrist because one, they only ever sparred very lightly. They only
Uh-huh.
sparred a whole bunch of gear on. They never conditioned themselves.
Mhm.
So it's like I've seen those things happen, because people
Yeah.
don't want to condition.
That's it. Conditioning, it's all in the body conditioning and it's a continuous thing.
Right.
I remember when I just started the martial arts, I would say I felt the injuries more. Now when there's an injury, it's like you recover faster because you're used to it.
Right.
The drill, you've been through it, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So
Right.
thank you to our Kiyoshis and our grandmasters that teach us these things because they really are there to help us and to make us be the best that we can be. Now,
Yes.
iron palm, that's pretty hectic, but that's something that we have to really do. Work on your hands, work on your fists, work on your other parts of your body. You mentioned something else earlier. You mentioned that you were taught about the pressure points on the body, how important they are. Because if you know where to press and where to press hard enough, obviously you have the upper hand. Just tell the audience a little bit about the pressure points,
Of
where they
course. So
are.
like pressure points are what I would like to say are like in the most common sense areas. Now what does that mean? Now let's see, if you bend your arm, right? One. Now, can you bend it backwards? No.
No.
So right here already tells you that
Mhm.
there's something here. Now, again,
Yep.
your wrist, everywhere that bends, has some type of point that can be used to your advantage or to a disadvantage, right? So anywhere that bends, even your fingers, even in your fingers, maybe over here, and
Mhm.
very different points. You have your temples. You have in the middle of here. You have,
Yeah.
here. You have here. You have over here. You have so many
So you.
different points. Not only pressure points, but vital areas.
Mhm.
That are there. So it's like, when he taught it, it was more or less like where you want to hit to get the
Yes.
most effective damage. You hit the temple, you're gonna get a little stagger, you're gonna get the blindness, you're gonna get
Mhm.
the so that's it. That's to your advantage. Now, when you hit somebody there, you get to follow up more without them attacking because they're worried about getting their vision back. Now, again, when you hit somebody in their throat with an open
So you.
hand, boom. When you hit, they're going to be choking. They're going to be surprised. A lot of bouncers use this technique, right?
Mhm.
When they're in like a bar, just a quick, the person's like, whoa, what the hell just happened? So another thing is, like you just did, you go in, right here, the throat, boom,
Yep.
right there, over here as well is a very, very, very vital point. Over here, where there's no bone, the solar plexus, there's
Oh,
different
that one's hectic.
many different places, from ranging from the body to the face to the arms to the legs, everywhere, to the ankle, to the foot,
Yeah.
to the toes. I mean, there's pressure points everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Absolutely. And it's all about that element of surprise.
Yes.
And, we call this the light switch. If you hit someone here
Oh,
hard
lights
enough,
out.
the lights go off.
That's it.
And if you hit them in the solar plexus, you change their breathing. And then it's difficult for them to fight. So there's so many. I mean, Kakato, stepping on the foot, so
Right.
many things that you can do. And it's so wonderful that martial arts trains us in all these amazing techniques. When you really get into that tight spot, you have so many options. Now, I see Phil answered our question here, Michael. He says he started in Budokan Karate freestyle, mixed martial arts, Taekwondo, Karate, kickboxing at the moment, and he trains and helps to teach Thai boxing. And then he
Nice.
says he travels all over to his masters. Ian Parker, who's also in the Meticulous Martial Arts Mastermind, he is his master. Sandy Holt, Master Sken Thai Boxing, and Tang Su Do, and Master Ian Style. Edward says a good point is under the armpits. Under the
Yes.
armpits.
Very, very, very good point. Very good point. I know his style would be like a snake, a snake
Yeah.
fist or something like
Yeah.
that would go underneath, or like a Wing Chun type of technique. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, that is a very good, and as a Hapkido practitioner, that's a very good point. After you get control of the hand, you would want to use your to rotate their
That's
shoulder,
it.
to pull them, just like an Aikido move. Like you would pull them and guide them by using their shoulder. Yes, that's a very good
Yeah.
point.
And then we've got Donna Kansilla Keating in the house. She's also a MAM member. Thank you to all the MAM members supporting. She's Dame Donna Kansilla Keating.
Yes.
Congratulations. She was Dame this year. She says you're amazing, Michael. Love the old school training. Great honor to this warrior to you. And I know she did Aikido.
Yes.
And then Phil says he's been in martial arts for 30 years next year. Wonderful, wonderful group of individuals.
Yeah.
So we've got the styles down. We've talked about the weapons. We've talked about body conditioning. We've talked about the pressure points. The lessons that you've learned in that course of the years that you've been training with different people. Let's talk a little bit about your heart and your passion for martial arts. What is it that makes you get up every day and train?
Well, so my passion for martial arts, I don't know when it started. I just knew I grew up with it. And it was very ironic that my parents put me the name Michelangelo. Because
Yeah.
everybody knows Michelangelo is not only the painter, but he's the Ninja Turtle, right? And till this day, I'm 23 years old, and I'll watch any Ninja Turtle movie you put on. I'll watch any Ninja Turtle show because I love the Ninja Turtles. So it was kind of weird that my parents always tell me, I'm like, hey, so why did you name me an Italian name if I'm Puerto Rican? They're like, oh, because you like the Ninja Turtles. How did you know I like the Ninja Turtles? The birth certificate. How did you know? So it's like I never understood that, but it's like they knew. You know, they kind of knew in a way I was gonna be connected to martial arts, so they put
Yeah.
the name. I don't know. So you know, it started very early. You know, the Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, and the Karate Kid, then all these different martial arts, and you know, Bruce Lee, then the Shaw Brothers, you know, the Kung Fu film, the
Oh
Five
yeah.
Venoms, you know, the 36 Chambers of Shaolin, Kudo Obi, you know, all these different martial arts films. And, you know, my passion just grew. Every time I watched a movie, I would try to believe I was the person in that movie. And, you know, I feel
Good.
like that added on a fuel to my passion of martial arts, you know, to live in like a
Yeah.
fantasy world as a kid and, you know, go through martial arts. I mean, that's something that, you know, it's a great experience for a kid. Now that I look back, I wish I would have had that mindset till the day that I die, you know? Like, you
Yeah.
know, as you grow older, you see the reality of real life and you know. But the what really makes me get up and train every day is my daughter. You know, it's just having a daughter. You
Beautiful.
know, now I'm not being
Mm.
healthy and training for myself. I'm being healthy and I'm training for my little daughter Nazareth, you know, so that, you know,
Oh,
now she's almost 2 years old and she's already getting up. And, you know, when she sees me do my stretching, holding up my side kicks, she's there holding up the side kicks with me. When I
good
hold my
job.
hand target, she's like hitting the hand targets, you know. So I love it. You know, now you know, I see that I'm able slowly but surely going to be able to pass down my legacy of martial arts, something that I'm
Mm.
so proud of, you know. So it's like, you know, to be able to, you know, one day teach her to defend herself because I know she's going to be a young lady one day, and you know, she's going to
Yeah.
need to be able to defend herself 100%. You know, because you know, if men need to be able to defend themselves, in my opinion, I feel like
Oh
women
yeah.
are more on the prone of attack. So I feel
Oh
like
yes.
they really need some form of self defense to always keep them protected. You know, so
That's it.
as my job, you know, as a father and you know, as an instructor, I feel like there's no better thing that I can do but to help my daughter, you know, learn this, you know, values of training and stuff.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Just a statistic for the people out there. I'm streaming from South Africa, very cold but extremely beautiful South Africa. And the gender based violence, the violence between genders, let's say men that are abusing their women or their wives, or women sometimes abuse men as well. The gender based violence statistics say that ours is higher, 5.1% higher, 5.1 times higher than in the rest of the world. Of course, I agree with you. Women have to be able to empower themselves and have to be able to protect themselves, all of us, because the world has changed. Things have really, really changed. Now, you talked about the Ninja Turtles, and I mean, you're still in your early 20s. You've done so much in the martial arts, and they decided to name you after a Ninja Turtle. And I thought to myself, it's because you came out fighting Michael. They knew this little boy, this little boy, he's gonna kick ass one day. So who's to
No,
you for that?
it's so funny. Like I just always asked, and I'm like, they're like, yeah, because you like the Ninja Turtles. But how did you guys know? Did you have a crystal ball? Did somebody was reading the cards to you at my birth? Like what happened? So you know that was just so funny. But you know, like if it was my parents doing of naming me something to push me in that certain direction, hey, I
Yeah,
love it because you know I fell in love with it. You know, I
yeah.
wake up, I do my stretches. You know, I do my thing. I even got into drinking tea. You know, after
Oh.
Grandmaster Kim Chang Sun, you know, he would talk about the different teas and the benefits of
Mm.
how what it would do. So in the morning, I wake up, I make a hot tea, I do my stretches. You know, I go over my repetitive kicks. You know, I do all my basic kicks, and then I go on with my day. Then when I
Good.
come back, you know, I do, you know, some calisthenics if I have some time, you know, and you know, I find some time to, you know, do weapon trainings, you know, but every day I make sure to work on something. You know, even if I don't have time, I'm there at least working on my breathing.
Yes.
At least just working on something, you know, because as a martial
Yeah.
artist, I don't feel like, you know, your hands and your feet and, you know, the physical is 100%. You know, the study of the language, the culture, the
Oh
tradition,
yeah.
the value is also in martial arts, which I really don't see present
Mm.
in a lot of martial arts today. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing is, you know, the history, where the martial arts
Mm.
came from. You know, somebody could tell me, oh, yeah, my style is this, and this Kwan of this school. Okay, and who's your master? My master's this. Okay, where does your master come from? Japan. Now, what is your master's history? Um, he's Japanese. How don't you know that your master's ancestors went to China, trained with Chinese, came back, learned these styles, and then so it's like a lot of things aren't present now, in the martial arts. And I know I'm young, and I'm not trying to be arrogant in any way. I'm not trying to be, on that I'm better than you type of level, but it's things that I have had the privilege of seeing at a young age. That when I was younger, you've seen these type of things of verification of lineage. You've seen people were able to tell you their style down to who were their masters, down to show you pictures. Now it's not there anymore. Now it's it's just follow me. My style is the best, and my style is effective, and my style is this. But you don't learn. If you're in karate, you expect to learn ich ni san shi go roku chi hachi kuju. You expect
ich ni san.
You expect to learn something. If you're in Taekwondo, Tansudo, you expect to learn Hana Adul said you expect to learn at least the number system. You expect to learn the kicks like in Japanese, awashigeri, the things like that. And Korean, abchagi, dihuri chagi, naraban chagi, all these different types of things you at least want to learn. You may not know how to speak the language, but it's very necessary to learn the names, because even in the names, when you translate the names, it's different than straight punch. This one is Abchagi would be front snapping kick. Now, why is it called front snapping kick? Because you snap the leg, and wow, that makes more sense to the person of okay. Then instead of just saying front kick, people would just raise their leg straight up. Now, when you do front snap kick, to snap the kick. And how can you snap the kick? By bending your knee. So it's just like very simple things like
dynamic.
That. Like an eye opener in a way to certain people. I know, especially like me, I love learning things. And if I learn new things, I'm like, oh, wow, what? Oh my God. So it's like things like that. Yeah, but I love the martial arts. It's taught me so many things. It's taught me, so many different values, customs. Like when you go out and when you go out with your master, which is a thing not seen in present day, but very present in the Chinese martial arts community out there. Even to this day, if a Chinese martial artist goes out with his master or anything, you sit on a certain side, you raise your glass, you toast a certain way.
That's it.
A certain person toasts at a certain time before the other person can make a toast. So it's things like this. When you eat, you say a certain thing. When you're done, you say a certain thing. When you get up, you get out in a certain way. So it's like very military style in a way, but like very respectful, very disciplined, and very uplifting, very like looking at your master, how he's supposed to be looked, He has spent years, sweating, breaking bones, drawing blood, to perfect his style. And then now he comes and he teaches you all, the least you can do is at least hold him in a high pedestal. That's my way of giving a respect to a master that has not wasted, but has passed his whole life learning the martial arts to then give back to a community. That's my personal philosophy on how, students should uplift the master,
Yeah, absolutely. When we do kioski, Sensei Nurei, there's a way that you do it, and even that's a fighting move. Doesn't look like it. Looks like you're going into yoi, but that's a move for if someone tries to attack you. So yes, we learn the Japanese terminology. Absolutely. There's a certain way that the senpais conduct themselves. There's a certain side that you stand. There's a certain, certain phrases that we say after we are finished.
Right.
And that is very important. The traditional part of it is very, very important. I agree with you. And my Kiyoshi is not only my Kiyoshi in the dojo. If I see him in church, if I see him in town, he is my Kiyoshi, and I will us to him.
Yeah.
And that's because I respect him for everything that he does for me. And I think that's a very, very important point that you made. Getting to know the history. We talked about that last night on the group. the history of your karate, and getting to know the terminology. We do all the terminology. We do all the names of the kicks, the breaks, Oshiro, the Oshirogeris, the Kakato, the Toyo, the Kamade, all of the moves, Kamade, everything we learn the Japanese terminology for.
Right.
And that's because we understand what it stands for, because the description, like you said, is in the name. And we had give us a little bit of insight on the Shaolin monks, because we talked last night about the influence that the Shaolin monks had, on the various styles. I know Ed loves this topic. He says martial arts is everywhere, and he started doing martial arts because he watched those old movies that you mentioned. What do you feel? How did the Shaolin monks give edification? What part did they play
Well,
in
not
our?
only the Shaolin monks, but the Shaolin monks play a huge role, but the Chinese in general. So when you hear about the Shaolin monks, they are composed of the 72 secrets, right? Right. So there's
Yes.
different, like iron palm falls into one of those secrets of the Shaolin. So then they have things like the iron shirt. They have the iron elbow. They have the iron head, the iron egg, where the genitals are
Yes.
hardened through vigorous training. I mean, there's different types of secret forms in the Shaolin. I'm not really well versed in what those secret forms are. I'm pretty sure Edward would be able to answer that for you. But yeah, so the Chinese played a huge role. Even the Japanese, when Japanese formed karate, um,
Yeah.
they went. There was rich Japanese people that went back to China by boat, or they were selling something, merchants. And when they went back, they went back with they went back. They went to the Chinese people, and they either had a family style, or they had an animal style, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a weapon style they use, and that person would come back a few years later and add that to what they already knew in Okinawa, right? Not Japan, but Okinawa, right? So they would come back and they would bring this thing. That's why when you see an Okinawan martial arts, you would see like crane hands or like a mantis hand.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
that's weird. Or you would see like a crane wing, things like that. So it would be,
Yeah.
wait, but that looks like kung fu. And that's because, the Okinawan masters would go to China, and they would
Mm-hmm.
come back with some form of fighting or some form of
Very.
martial arts. And, they even say that's where Kobudo comes from. Kobudo, the study of weapons, Japanese weaponry. They went to China, and, they seen these different types of Chinese arms, and they came back with the knowledge of those arms, and then they would either modify them, or even use their regular weapons that they had, whether if it was like a paddle to row a boat, they would use it. Now that they were trained by the Chinese to fight in weapons, they would use simple weapons to fight with them.
Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I
and
agree with you.
and
Yeah.
even down to the Koreans, where General Choi Hong Hee, where the father of karate, Gichin Funakoshi, would actually teach him,
Yes.
karate. He would teach him karate. He would then bring the 9 kwans of Taekwondo, because before Taekwondo was one thing, there was different houses, right? Different schools. So I know, like in jujitsu, you're a jujitsu practitioner. So I know that there's different schools of jujitsu, and there's different schools
Yes.
of aikido and aikijujitsu. But
Mm-hmm.
especially back then, different schools had different techniques. Back then, that's how it was with taekwondo. There was
Mm.
Odo Kwan, there was Subakdo, there was Mudu Kwan, and then there was all these different houses of taekwondo. And
Yeah.
what General Choi Hong Hee, his thing was to combine all the houses and to make one martial art, which in the present day is called Taekwondo, the way of the foot in
Mm.
the face.
Yeah.
And now that's where Taekwondo has got its like knife hands, his shuto, his straight punches,
Shuto,
blocks,
Haito.
the different types of
Correctly. I
blocks
should.
and hands techniques came from karate. But where did all those flashy jump kicks, spin kicks come from? That came
Yes.
from a Korean ethnic martial art called Taekyon. Taekwondo
Oh,
is a very old martial art. Where have you ever seen capoeira? Capoeira, where
yes, I
they do
love capoeira. Oh, yeah, I've watched it.
the
Fight
ginga.
dance.
It's like a fight dance, right? And they do the ginga and they move around and then they do the kicks and they do the split. So when you see Taekwondo is just like that. It's not
Oh,
very deep movements like the ginga, but
yeah,
they would move around each other and you would see them. It's kind of like a Tai Chi in a way. They will move their hands. But then
yeah.
when they come, they will go to sweep your legs with their feet. They will come to scoop you up. They will chop you down. I mean, Taekwondo is brutal. It looks like a dance, but when you see the split
Yeah.
second they pop from that dance, oh, they come with like these weird kicks. And that's where Taekwondo gets his specialty kicks from Taekwondo.
I love that. I'm learning new things here today. I've known about capoeira. Absolutely love watching them. They are so skilled and talented. It's beautiful to watch. It really is beautiful to watch, but it is very online where they match up different styles. And capoeira would be, for instance, against a normal karate style that we know we very on the MAB group. Now, I wanted to ask you, I watched the Korean drama in the COVID lockdown, in the COVID time, and it was called Hwarang.
But
And it was all about this dynasty. And then in Korea, and then I had a wonderful discussion with Gary Henry Amen, and he actually practices Hwarang Do. I didn't
Hwarangdo,
know.
yes. So
Yeah, I didn't know
Hwarangdo
there was a
is
style.
the
Yeah,
way of the flowering night. It's a
beautiful.
it's a Korean martial art. Very, very, very deadly. Heavy Chinese influence.
Yeah,
Now, not a heavy Japanese influence. It's a
yeah.
very Chinese influence, kind of like a Kuk Sulwan type of thing.
Mhm.
Very flowery, very high stance. That's how uh, uh, Hwarangdo is. I mean, and they use a various amount of weapons that you would actually find in kung fu as well, like the mini
Yeah,
daggers. You would find
yeah,
that in a Shaolin form, or like in a Shaolin or kung fu martial art.
yeah.
That's what you would find in Hwarangdo. There's a very famous master, Grandmaster Taejun Lee, and his
Oh,
father in America. They facilitate, Hwarangdo, and I haven't met him, but I have seen, like him online, and I've seen his seminars, and I've seen him training. They are amazing. Oh, they are amazing. And Hwarangdo goes to every aspect of combat. It's not only a stand-up combat, it's submission, it's takedowns,
yes.
it's eye gouging, it's throat crushing. I mean, it's a very, 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 very effective battlefield martial art. Very, very effective.
Fantastic. That's definitely going on my bucket list when I move to the States. I'm going to definitely go and train Hwarang Do because it was amazing. The moment I heard that that's actually a style, I realized what style they were using in that specific drama because it was about war and it was about fighting. So, thank you so much, Michael, for so many interesting golden nuggets that you've shared. And
Of
I want to
course.
ask you if you would like to end this session off for us with words of wisdom. That would be lovely.
Well, before I say anything, I honestly, again, want to give you my thanks. I want to give you, a humble bow, for giving me this opportunity to come on your podcast, amongst other legends, I'm to them, I'm nothing, you have had many amazing people on this podcast, so it's a big pleasure to me, a big honor for me to be able to speak to you and,
Thanks.
to get to know you and to tell you about myself. And a word of wisdom that I have would be, you know, always have trust in God. And if you don't believe in God, believe in yourself. Always, because I see now that people in the martial arts, they get very discouraged very easily when things don't go their way or they don't get something, and they look for other people to validate them. They look for other people to, lift them up themselves. But how can you lift somebody up if you can't lift up yourself, right?
Good
So
point.
one word of wisdom that I would have is, if you don't have trust in God, always have trust in yourself, and you will always, always, always make it.
Absolutely phenomenal words of wisdom from a very, very wise martial artist friend, amazing individual. Edward says, Michael is the man. I want to be just like him when I grow up. So, Edward, we're sending you.
He's a joke there.
He's always full of jokes. Thank
Yeah.
you, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you, Michael. You are amazing. Juanita Kapp and Michael Angelo Reyes signing out from Meticulous Moments. We'll see you in the next session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.